Brother asks me to change my wedding date because his wife's due around the same time, but I refuse. Now he's upset, saying I'm being inconsiderate of their big moment. So my fiancée Sarah 30F and I 32M have been planning our wedding for over a year. We're getting married in late October, which has always been a special month for us. It's the month we met and where we've shared a lot of memories together. We both agreed we wanted an autumn wedding, and the venue we fell in love with had exactly one Saturday available in October, so we booked it. Fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, my younger brother, Jake 28M, and his wife, Lisa 26F, announced they're expecting their first child, which is great news. The only issue is that Lisa's due date is, you guessed it, in late October, just a few days before our wedding. Jake called me up and asked me if we could consider changing our wedding date. He said they're concerned that the baby might come early or late, and they want to be able to attend the wedding without any stress. He also mentioned that if the baby is born close to the date, he might not be able to make it at all. I told him I understood, but we've already booked everything: the venue, the photographer, the caterer, and moving the date would not only be difficult but would also cost us a significant amount of money. Plus, October is important to us, and we've been looking forward to this for over a year. Jake got upset and said I was being selfish for not considering his situation. He feels like I'm prioritizing my wedding over his child being born. I told him that while I'm excited to be an uncle, this is our wedding, and we shouldn't have to rearrange it because of something that's out of our control. Babies come when they come, right? Now, my parents have gotten involved. They think I'm being unreasonable and should at least try to be flexible. But Sarah is fully on my side and thinks it's ridiculous to change everything just because of a what if. So, Eta for sticking to our original wedding date, even if it means my brother might miss it. Next story.
Sister accuses me of stealing the spotlight after I announced my pregnancy at her wedding, but I thought it would add to the celebration. Now she's furious, saying I ruined her big day. I'm 32, my sister is 28, and we've always been incredibly close. Point in case, she was the first person I told that I was pregnant, besides my husband, of course. I told her essentially a week after I got a positive pregnancy test, which was about 3 months before her wedding. I told her that I was going to tell our parents and my husband's parents around the 10-week mark, but she told me that I should hold off until her wedding in September. I'd be like 4 months along at that point, so I wouldn't be showing really. And she thought it would be so special for her to be able to make an announcement about a special guest at her wedding. Also, it would be her first niece or nephew, and my parents' first grandbaby. I agreed, because it seemed like it meant a lot to her, and again, we were super close and I was happy to do that for her. Turns out, the first trimester was awful with morning sickness and exhaustion. I would have preferred to be able to talk about it with my mom, but I was willing to grin and bear it for my sister's wedding. Well, the wedding came along, and about halfway through the night, I asked her when the announcement was happening. She told me that she had changed her mind, and that her wedding didn't seem like a good time or place to announce my pregnancy. I was obviously super upset since I went through a really awful first trimester with only my sister and husband to lean on. I decided I wasn't going to put the announcement on hold any longer just for her, so my husband and I pulled my parents aside and quietly told them to keep it private for the evening. They were thrilled, lots of hugs, a few tears, but a very touching and private moment. Literally no one else found out until I announced it on Facebook a week later. My sister found out around the same time as my Facebook post when my dad mentioned how we told him about it, and she texted me and called me a bitch who made her wedding about myself, and she hasn't spoken to me since. I've messaged her and apologized probably a dozen times since then, but she refuses to talk to me, and now she refuses to come see her little nephew, who is almost a month old at this point. My parents and partner think I did nothing wrong since she went back on her word, and that I should just wait it out and she'll come around. I'm obviously unsure, as clearly this has made her so upset with me, and we were so close before. Next story.
Future Bill disrespected my kids at my wedding, so I kicked him out. Now my family is furious, claiming I overreacted, but I had to protect my children. My sister met her fiancé, Tim, 2 years ago. We only meet at my parents' house as I live in the next town with my now wife and my 2-step kids, 4 to 6. Tim doesn't like kids. He's made it clear how much he's uncomfortable being around them. Every time I brought my kids to my parents' house, Tim started acting out. He tried to indirectly ban the kids from visiting their grandparents' house. Dad was firm, but Tim never stopped trying to exclude my kids from family events. Wife, I wanted to have our wedding at our house, a small celebration. Tim asked if there were going to be kids at the wedding. My kids were the only ones at the wedding since we didn't have many guests. He tried to talk us out of involving my kids in the wedding and make it an adult event, but I told him to keep his thoughts to himself. My kids were excited to be part of the wedding. Tim and my sister arrived late. The kids were with us the entire time. Tim looked visibly upset till he suddenly offered to take the kids to bathroom so they wash up before eating. Minutes later, he came back. I asked where the kids were. He said he took them to their bedroom cause they wanted to play with their toys. I thought it was out of character for them. I wondered why they suddenly didn't want to eat, since they said they were hungry. I wanted to check on them but got busy with my aunt's ankle injury. My younger sister came telling us the kids' bedroom's door was locked and the kids were inside. My wife and I were in shock. We looked for the key. I asked my sister if she was the one who locked them in, but Tim said he did it, saying he was worried they'd wander around unsupervised and wanted to make sure they were safe since everyone was busy. I took the key and got the kids out. My daughter told me Tim said I didn't want them to go outside and that I'd punish them if they did. They're my kids now, of course I want them to be in my wedding. My wife was speechless. I lost it on Tim. I called him cruel and selfish for lying and doing this to my kids, trying to exclude them. I told him to get out. My sister defended him and was crying and calling me offensive names. I kicked her out too. My parents argued, saying what I did was unnecessary since Tim was just trying to help. They tried to get my wife to get involved before my sister decided to cut me out completely for what I did. I argued that they were unreasonable to think I was being bitter and explained why I kicked him out, but they still blamed me for my extreme reaction since Tim had good intentions. My wife was quiet all the time, probably wondering what the hell type of family she just married into. I don't blame her. My parents insist I talk to my sister and Tim, and everyone apologizes since this seemed to be a major misunderstanding. I refused, but they kept repeating the same thing. My parents say this must be a misunderstanding since Tim doesn't know how to deal with kids. However, they went quiet after they heard what my daughter said. My sister claimed that it's his way of getting kids to behave. Next story.
Brother expected me to babysit his friend's kids while we were on vacation, but I refused. Now he's upset, claiming I ruined the trip, but I didn't agree to watch anyone else's children. I F21 recently went on vacation with my brother M34, his family, friends, and a few of their siblings. A lot of us grew up together, so vacations like this weren't uncommon. But this is the first one where everyone's kids were also coming along. My brother offered to pay for my whole vacation rather than the half he usually paid if I was willing to help with the kids M7F4 for a day or two, so he and his wife, Rose, could get some alone time. I agreed since they're good kids and I help out anytime I'm in the vicinity anyways, as it's not uncommon for our culture. On the first night's dinner, one of my brother's friend's girlfriends, Allie, made an offhand comment about my brother having a vacation nanny while she was fussing with her kid while I was talking to Rose about their plans tomorrow, when she mentioned the kids just staying the night in my room so that they didn't have to wake us up early to leave for their appointment. Agreed since I was watching them tonight anyways. I assumed the problem started there since Allie showed up at my door after dinner trying to drop her kid off. I was fine with until she told him she would be seeing him tomorrow, and conversation after went like this. Me, I don't mind him being here for a few hours, but he can't spend the night. Her, but they're spending the night. Me. Yes, her, so why can't he? Me, well, there's no room for him, and they're my brother's kids and they're used to spending the night with me. We went back and forth a few times. Eventually, I just refused overall and apologized to the kid. I've been told a few stories, and Allie is the type to just leave her kid anyways, regardless of the conversation, and I didn't feel like tracking her down later. While we were at the pool a few days later, I took the kids to the resort cafe for ice cream and offered to take the other kids. A few of the parents said no, and some of them gave me a weird look, so I asked my friend about it. Apparently at the breakfast the second day, Allie complained about what I did, and a few of them took her side. Later that night at dinner, a wife of my brother's friend asked if I could watch her kid tonight so they could go somewhere, and I said no, explaining that my niece and nephew were with their parents tonight, so the younger siblings were all going out. She mentioned that since I was willing to take them earlier for ice cream and since they said no, I owe them, said it's not that big of a deal and I can go tomorrow instead. I just said sorry, I can't, and left it there. There were similar situations, and eventually my brother stepped in to say that he paid for my vacation, which is why I took a few days to help him.